Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this morning's tutorial. One moment, let me make sure that no one's emailed me trying to get into this tutorial. Anyway, let's see. That's okay. Moving on. So this morning, the activity that we're going to undertake is going to be some structured writing time. So you're going to log on to eLearning. You're going to go to our course site and you're going to scroll down to the week 2 tutorial questions. Week 2 tutorial questions. You're going to follow the directions there and answer those questions. However, this is not an exam. I'm not testing you to make sure you understand the concepts. This is about giving you an opportunity to engage with the concepts and clarify things that may be confusing for you. One second, someone just came into the waiting room. Let me, okay, sorry. So I want you to feel free to ask questions. You know, anything that sort of comes along that you're confused about, and then you can, and then we'll have that conversation, and that's how this discussion is going to work today. And we're not going to do this every week, and we're not going, and we may do it again, you know, sort of later in the semester on a different topic, but the idea is that this is intended to give you an opportunity to sort of grapple with the concepts in a place where you are where the stakes are low. And then the second piece of the instructions that is important for you is that you do not have to rush to finish by the end of this session. If you are not finished at the end of the session, that's fine. Finish on your own time and upload it at your convenience to eLearning. If you do finish during the session, please upload your responses, and you're welcome, if you so choose, to depart at that point. Or you can stay, because it's possible that maybe later in the session, one of your classmates will have a question that will illuminate something for you. So that's up to you. Okay, with that said, you guys can be on your way, and if you have questions, you can ask them in the chat, or you can ask them via voice. Okay, so I will talk to you guys as time goes on.
Hi, sir.
Yes.
When you said to show the significance of the following concepts, do you want us to give an example, or do you want us to say how it's important to rear prop?
I mean, I think that when I wrote the question, by sort of taking someone else's question and rewriting it a little bit, I was thinking in terms of speaking generically to the significance to real property, but if the easiest way in your mind to illustrate that is through an example, I'm certainly open to that. And I want to be clear about how you're being assessed on this assignment. You will not be assessed sort of to make sure that you got everything right. As long as your answers are demonstrating that you're engaged with the material, you're going to receive full marks on this assignment because this is being graded for completion. Because it's intended to be what we call a formative assessment. Okay, so the idea is this is intended to help you understand the concepts, not to test whether you understood them. Okay. So as long as you're engaged with the material, you'll be fine on the marking, and any way that communicates that is going to work for me. Okay. In term to sort of follow up on that, just to make sure that we understand, I am not going to provide individualized feedback on this assignment. You'll receive a model answer. So I will give you how I would answer these questions, and you can sort of compare that to your answer and see what you think.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Great. Latecomers, you'll get a private message in a minute with the instructions. I'm looking something up, and then I will send them along.
Hi, sir, Dr. Crowell. For number 4, it asks for us to decide what constitutes a fair price. Do you want us to give a numerical value or?
I mean, I think that, so as with all of these questions, the answer is less important than the explanation. I think that there is a legitimate argument to be made that a fair price is no price, that there's an argument to be made that we should not be buying and selling body parts, right? And I think that, and that's sort of the status quo argument, right, is that we should not be buying and selling body parts. But if you decide that there is a fair price, that this is a market that should exist, then yeah, put a number on it. But the explanation is going to be far more important.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, Taya, I'm sorry. How would you like me to pronounce your name? Why don't we start with that? Yeah, come off mute and tell me how to pronounce your name so that I don't get it wrong.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
It's pronounced tie, like how you tie a shoe or
Great.
anything like
Okay.
that.
Thanks. I just wanted to make sure that I'm calling you by the right name. So, Ty, the answer to your question is that if you, I think that that's a really hard argument to make. Okay. I think that if you accept Professor Render's argument as to what constitutes property, that I'm not sure I see the logic of how you get from her criteria to the idea that body parts don't fall within that criteria, because her criteria is that property is a thing, right? If it's a thing, it is property, okay? So I think that in order to argue that that body parts and that the body in general doesn't constitute property, you have to start by rejecting Professor Render's basic criteria for what constitutes property. I think that you can do that. I think that we do that, right? I think that that's part of her point, is that right now, the status quo of our conception of property does not include the body. So I think that you can make that argument. I don't think you can make it by starting from the premise of accepting her criteria of what constitutes property. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, what I was trying to argue is that, well, based on what I read, her two criteria were the entity must have value and it must be ownable. And what I was going to go from there was kind of argue that a body cannot have value because in terms of someone can't repossess your body parts from you, as in they can't be taken from you unless, you know, you are donating it to someone else. And then on the other hand, it can't be ownable per se because, you know, you can't take a person, like you can't, I don't know. I just think that a body part can only really be owned by one person and no one else, whereas property can be owned from one person to the next, and a body part can't have
Yeah,
that. So that's the criteria that I was gonna kind of,
right.
you know, say that's why it can't be property.
Absolutely. Okay. I think I understand what you're saying now. So one of the things to keep in mind, right, is that Professor Render, you know, the two criteria that you're dealing with, does it have value and is it ownable, right? So Professor Render's argument, as I understand it, is that all things have these two, meet these two criteria. Like if it is a thing, it has value, even if that value is negligible, right? What's the value of one piece of paper? Not much, you know, or it is ownable, right? If I give you this one piece of paper, now you have it, not me. And that statement remains true of all things in the world, okay? And she talks about sort of your criticism in the article, right? She talks about the difference between first order value, which is the value of the body to the person that occupies it, right? And she talks about how that value isn't alienable. Okay, we can't sell that. We can't deprive someone. We can't deprive someone of the first order value of their body without also depriving them of their existence, right? And there's no substitute goods. I can't give you another body to replace the one you have. So that's what she's talking about when she talks about first order value. But she said that there's a second order value to the body, which is the body's capacity to provide goods and services, okay? And I think you can argue that the second order value of the body is part of the theory that supports labor as a theory of property, right? The notion that you should receive compensation for the things that you work for, and you should receive compensation for the value that you bring to things through your labor, right? That there's a property interest in the things that you do. So that's, I think that Professor Render would characterize that as a form of second order value. And then also, right, the second order value in the capacity of the human body to provide space for other things to happen, right? So, you know, surrogate mothers providing the use of their reproductive system to other people, you know, providing, you know, stem cells or bone marrow or other, you know, body parts to be grown into things that can be used in medical treatment or organ donation, right? So these are all second order values according to Professor Render, in that we can transfer and alienate them, and by alienate we just mean sell, right? That without depriving the body's owner of existence. So that is Professor Render's argument, okay? I think that your argument, I think that you can reach the conclusion that you reach. I think that you have to grapple with Professor Render's distinction between first order value and second order value in order to reach that conclusion. And I think that I think that you can conclude that at the end of the day, you don't accept this distinction, but you do have to grapple with that, and you have to explain why you don't accept it. Does that make sense? Did that help? Great. Right, Johnny, that's exactly the argument, that's essentially the argument that Professor Rinder makes. Okay, and she's explaining it in more detail, but that's sort of the nut of the argument, is that it's a thing that exists, and it's yours in the sense that nobody else can have it, and therefore it is property, and she argues that that has some subsequent effects that play a role. So. Okay, guys, about 10 minutes left. So any questions that you have, let's go ahead and get them out and talk about them and get them into our conversation. And then, like I said, if you finish, upload to e-learning. If you don't finish, then we'll take it. You can finish it on your own time and upload it before the end of the week. Okay. So about 10 more minutes.
Hi, Dr. Pearl. For the question four, not four, three, when I asked if the law of property overrides numerous clauses, if I wanted to say that, I would say that it builds on numerous clauses, would I have to give like a compare and contrast sort of situation? Or would I just,
What you mean by compare and contrast?
like, I would give a definition of each and then say under numerous clauses, like the right, which it says that the number of property interests are can be limited. And then, so after I give like a definition and then I talk about it and say like what Professor Render says about it, and then I will go into the Law of Property Act and kind of like compare it to what she's talking about, or
Well, let me tell you what I was thinking when I wrote that question, and maybe this will help guide you a little bit. The idea behind this question is that the Law of Property Act says that there are only a few types of interests in land that are legal interests, right?
Right.
The fee simple and the term of years absolute.
Yeah.
Okay. Term of years absolute is a lease.
Yeah.
Okay. But the judges, sort of throughout the Commonwealth, but definitely in the Caribbean, refer to leases as personal property.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question that so what you're being asked is sort of like, the Law of Property Act 1925 is received throughout the Caribbean, right? That predates every independence action. So it's a parliamentary act that is part of our, part of the Caribbean's legal system. Are we misinterpreting it by treating leases as personal property, given that Parliament in 1925 says that this is an interest in land at law? I think I honestly, I want to be very clear, right? I think you can argue both sides. And this is a question where I think that the best answers, and my answer will be formatted this way, will explain the argument for both sides and then explain which side you find more convincing and why.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's how I would structure that answer, is that it's really intended to see, can you build on the materials and sort of think through the critical arguments on both sides of an issue.
Right. And then I'll just decide which one I find more compelling, and then
Right.
Okay.
Right. Absolutely. Okay.
Alright, go.
And again, as with number 4, the explanation's far more important than the answer.
Right.
Okay.
Alright,
I'm
thank
not
you.
really concerned whether you think that we've been misinterpreting the Law of Property Act by treating leases as personal property. I'm
Mhm.
interested in the reasoning that you use to reach your conclusion
Right.
on one side or the other.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Okay, guys, we are out of time, and I have another meeting starting like now, so I need to go. But again, Roseanne, email me email me any questions related to scheduling. We're not going to deal with that in this at this point. Just email me. We will see you guys this afternoon. Again, if you're not finished, finish on your own time, upload it before the end of the week, and we'll see you this afternoon.